this week. I'm super excited for this. But the album that we are going to be discussing this week is the brand new album by Olivia Rodrigo, Guts, her second album. So Guts is the second studio album by American singer-songwriter Olivia Rodrigo. It was released on September 8th, 2023. Continuing the tradition from her debut album, the album was written primarily by Rodrigo and her producer. Eric, your thoughts on the second album by Olivia Rodrigo?
I mean, I don't know if we're considered experts, but we've only reviewed her only other album. So she does have a special on Netflix, or sorry, on Disney Plus, which I'm very intrigued to watch, and it's about how she recorded and came to write the first album, Sour, which we both really enjoyed. So does this compare? And it's always the case with the second album. You come up with an album, the first album that's good, your second album is going to be judged hard against that second one. Let's start off by saying I enjoyed the first album better.
Oh, okay.
I did. Okay. However, I don't think by much. So I really enjoyed this album. The one thing I feel like she's kind of really experimenting with her sound in this album, because I got a bit of like she still has that like teenage drama sound to her album, which is fair enough. She's like, how old? 20?
20 now, yeah. I think.
Yeah, 20. So I mean, I'm not looking for like a philosophical album like in terms of like her lyric writing. But even though like you have to set your mind at like a high schooler or like 20. Just a high schooler just graduating, right? Like early university, there's still that a bit of drama from high school, and you're still like kind of learning to be an adult, right? You're partying too hard. But she has a really good way with words. That's what I really like about Olivia here. One of my personal favorite songs on the album, which I don't know why was the first single, was Bad Idea, right? I really dug that album, like, or that song. I thought it was a kind of cool, like, it's like the premise is you have a boyfriend that you've broken up with, but yet you're still hanging out with him, and you're still kind of wanting to like see him, and I just kind of like that, like, like, I'm gonna see him tonight. This is a bad idea, right? And then she keeps saying it over and over in her head. And as a youth, you like these are the things that you kind of just like focus on, like your tunnel vision. There's nothing else going on in your life. You don't have bills. You don't have like house payments or whatever. So and I just love that, like, it's a bad, like, it's just like kind of getting into her head and the way it builds up, and then it's like, fuck it, it's fine. and then it goes right in, like, I really thought that was very clever. Like, that was very cleverly done. Especially the line, and I liked how they used the little vibrato kind of thing. My brain goes right, and it's kind of just like those endorphins, right? As a youth. So I really like how she uses, like, just how she brings the song together. I really like what she does with that. Another one I enjoyed was Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl. I thought that was kind of neat. It was kind of just like this girl that's like just so like almost sheltered, and then it's just like, we're out into the world now. Welcome to this craziness, and it's like literally like setting things on fire and like drinking your ass off, right? So she really hits that age group very well. And she uses the lyrics very well, but I just, the problem that I have, and I think it's because she's young, and I know Jason Dragonfly is going to be all over me on this, because I was coming at old people, now I'm coming at young people. I just find that her ballads are a little bit like, okay, like, I feel like it's a bit too, like, you haven't really experienced life yet in order to write like a really good ballad. Like, for instance, Vampire. Vampire, I don't know
Oh.
why. I just couldn't get over the fact that it's like I get where it's coming from,
Hmm.
but and I get this is the only experience that you may have had, and this is what you're writing about. But I feel like ballads come or are read and listened to better if the person's gone through like years of you know this experience, because it's almost just like you know, like you take like November Rain, right?
Okay.
Like that's
Right, right, right.
that's a well-written ballad kind of thing, right?
Right, right, right.
So, but again, I dug what she was going with the album. I really like the experimental sound. Like I found elements of like Beck in
Oh my
there
god, I was gonna mention
a
that, but
bit.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so like it was kind of really cool to see her kind of expand, because it's like this Avril Lavigne, Beck, kind of like White Stripes,
Hmm.
kind of like rocker. So she's very experienced. Like she has a lot of music knowledge. You can tell she has, like, she's listened to other bands from different genres, and which I kind of dug, because she kind of pulls from it, and she's really good at using these little nuances that really send her message across.
Yeah. Chasing Dragonfly says only old people can write ballads, but not too old.
Exactly. I have unrealistic expectations here. So
Yeah, no, just going back to your comment about influences, like, yeah, there's definitely like Beck, like, what's the song? Get Him Back, straight up
mhm.
just Loser by Beck. Like it is the
Yeah, that's what I got too.
same, like thematically, it's the same song with the like sort of awkward rapping verses and then just a big ass chorus, which is exactly what
Mhm,
Loser by Beck is. There's Talking Heads influences in here. There's White Stripes
mhm,
influence, Avril Lavigne, like everything. A lot of grunge influence, post grunge stuff, um, which on a 20-year-old second album to me is pretty impressive.
mhm,
Because I don't I don't think there is a core Olivia Rodrigo sound just yet, right? Like that the first
mhm,
debut album was I really love that album, but it's not something that uh I would say like is there's no signature sound there yet. Whereas like this
mhm,
album is now just borrowing from different artists or other popular themes and is bringing it into her own. So I feel like we're not quite there in terms of her sound of like that is the signature Olivia Rodrigo sound, but it's interesting
mhm,
to see that evolve from like the first album to this album. Um, and saying that, I really like this album.
mhm.
Uh, I'll start with the negative because I think the 4-track Lacey is possibly the worst song on this whole album, and I actually really hate that song. I skip it every time.
Lacey, oh Lacey,
It's some like
with
weird
skin like puff pastry.
it's like some weird Dolly Parton like trying
Mhm,
to be like this country ballad sort of thing.
mhm,
I don't think that song does it. But the rest of the album is just like so good. It there's
mhm,
she's able to craft or at least narrate storylines through her songs and you get it, right? Like
mhm.
very clearly like this album is not written for like us, like our age demographic.
No.
It's not meant for like the 60-year-old rocker. It's this is very much a teenage demographic album.
Yep.
Um but in
Like
yeah.
I like the get him back is a perfect one. Like, I'm gonna key his car and stuff because he's like pissed me off, right?
Yeah.
Or even like love is embarrassing,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just very like teenage issues.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like
Mm,
with that lens in mind, like obviously I'm not going to relate lyrically to any of these songs, but
mhm,
I can still appreciate the story that's being told and like her perspective that's coming out of each of these songs. And it's just like I don't know, the songwriting is like that strong on this album. Um and it's also catchy. The songs are just like super catchy. All American Bitch. I've that opener for
Yeah,
this album, I feel like is such a perfect
it's
opener.
perfect.
Yeah.
It is perfect. I really love the like the ending, like the kind of like ending round that she does, like I'm pretty when I cry
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's just like it's just very like I just love it. I just love the way how she can use words and really paint that picture.
Hmm.
And again, like even though it sounds very young and very teenage drama kind of stuff, but like it kind of like was like this is totally what high school is,
Yeah.
right? Still,
Right.
but she does it. She writes very well. Like just everything is written well, and how she does it.
Yeah. 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 And it's just, and there's a lot of criticisms I would have of this album. Like Lacey, I think a lot of these songs, there's a few songs, I didn't write this down, but there's a few songs on this album where it's very clearly programmed drums. And it's like,
Mhm,
if you just had just like a really swinging real drummer come in and do this, like it just be so much better.
mhm.
It's really just nitpicking at that point. But yeah, I just really like this album. Now, do I like it more than the debut album? I don't know. I'm not actually quite sure. I think I will rate it higher than I originally did her debut album,
Mhm,
because I feel like when we did the debut album, I think I gave it either a 7 or an 8, somewhere there, which
mhm.
in hindsight was too low. It should have been much higher, because like I keep
Mhm,
coming back to that debut album, and it's like, oh, this is actually pretty close to a perfect album.
mhm. I I like the ballads really do it for me because again, like I want to know like you really have to walk life in order to
Mm,
write a good ballad and it just comes from experiences like I can't think of any good like great ones at the top of my head but like look at Queen, right? They have tons of ballads
right.
and like Somebody to Love. I feel like that's a ballad, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like, can anybody find me somebody to love? And you can just tell that this guy has lived this life and has really walked this path of like being isolated because because of his sexual preferences and it's just literally just like man like this really hits home, especially like when he sings and just the emotion in the song. Whereas I feel like the emotion in the song, yes, it's real to her, but it just doesn't have that same
Right.
effect.
Right.
But that being said, I'm really excited for like, 5, 6 years down the road, like Olivia Rodrigo coming out with an album then, because I'm sure it's going to be kick ass. Because again, she has a way with lyrics
Yep.
and she has a way with like songwriting capabilities that's just great. So I think that she's just going to keep getting better.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
what I think.
On the subject of ballads, if you remember Logical Track 7, what are your thoughts on that one? Because I personally, I thought that was like great. But now that you mention like sort of the emotional weight of the ballad that needs to be there,
Mhm.
I'm sort of rethinking my opinion of it. But I really liked Logical from a lyrical standpoint.
Like I did like it too. Like and again, like I have nothing to do with like lyrics. Like I agree. I think Lacey was a terrible song on this album. Like Vampire, another ballad on the album, which I feel like is just I get its meaning. I get it. I get logical. I get its meaning. I thought that was probably the best one
Okay.
out of all of it. But I just think that it just loses its oomph
Mm,
because of that lack of experience. Like I get your emotion. Like if I was your age, I completely understand. You're like, oh my god, you're so right. Like you're like this is like totally what. But like it's like where I'm at or where we're at in our lives. It just doesn't send that same message
right.
home. It's like okay, teenage drama, good job, you'll get
Right. Right.
over
Right.
it,
Yeah, but
right?
like, yeah, and we're sort of, it seems like a negative thing, but like it's all within context because these songs really, the demographic is 20, mid 20 and
Mhm.
under, more teenager, right? And if I'm 13, 16, whatever, and listening to this album, this is like deep and impactful in my life, because this is exactly what I'm going through at that age, right?
Absolutely.
And I can relate to
Absolutely.
this. But as our generation or older, we listen to these songs and we don't have that emotional connection. We can understand where you're coming from, but we don't have that emotional connection when we listen to these songs. No matter how great a song is, like, these songs are very clearly written for a specific age demographic, which I don't think is a bad thing. Like, it just
No,
what
it's
it
not.
is what it is.
Again, they're really great written songs, but like think about that. Like think about logical written when she's our age,
Yeah.
right? Because there's going to be a lot more meaning to it. Like obviously the lyrics would be different, but yeah, it just again, like you're not seeing us going to Olivia Rodrigo show,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like it's going to be predominantly young people, right? So,
Yeah.
which is great. Like I think again, like I think the songs are written well lyrically. Like I have no problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you look at Lacey, even the like if you just look at the lyrics, just even the way she just
Yeah.
uses, like here's a girl that she's jealous of, right? And just the way she writes the lyrics, it's a good written lyrically song.
Yeah.
I just did not like the song
Yeah.
itself
Mm-hmm.
as a whole.
Yeah. All right, Eric. Final thoughts, ratings on this album.
I mean, I didn't hate it. I actually enjoyed it. I listened to it a lot. I really loved the first half. The middle, I felt like it was a bit like if I really had to like really critique it, but it wasn't too bad. Like I liked how she ended it, how the album ended perfectly. So I'm gonna give this an 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, for me it is a solid 9 out of 10 for me. Honestly, without Lacey, and if you put in real drums, I would have given this a 10. It would have been an easy 10 for me. But it's not quite the perfect album, but it's pretty damn close. It's a really good
I
record.
I am excited to see the progression of her career
I,
because she's definitely on my list of
yeah,
like people to watch for, because I cannot wait for her to come out with an album like when she's like in her mid 20s,
yeah.
late 20s, because it's going to be fantastic.
Like, it's difficult to do one good album, but to have two good albums in a row is
Back to back.
near impossible. It is near
Yeah.
impossible. So it's just impressive that both albums are just such a high caliber already. So yeah, very excited for future releases. Okay, that's it. That's our discussion on Guts by Olivia Rodrigo. For those of you who are following along with us every single week, the album that we will be discussing will be the brand new album by Baroness Stone. So we're gonna get into some prog stoner metal, prog metal around there. It's gonna be interesting. I think, Eric, this is going to be your first time listening to Baroness. I think you're going to be
I think
pleasantly
so.
surprised. So
I
it
think
should be
so.
fun.
Oh, I like this guy's beard. I like his beard.
All right, that's about it. Yeah, so this is the Crossroads Music Podcast. We're a weekly music podcast streaming here at twitch.tv/the Crossroads Music Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, all those places where you get your podcasts. We have a YouTube channel where we put up all the album reviews eventually. Feel free to disagree with our opinions, but try to give a reason why. But, whatever, do what you want.
Yeah, we love the boldness though.
Join the Discord, yell at us there also. But that's basically it. We'll be back next week, Monday at 10 p.m. ET, 7 p.m. PT, back here at twitch.tv/the Crossroads Music Podcast. That's it for the show. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time.